Welcome to Saturday Night Sweat. We are gathered here today to react live to the Circa Survivor selection counts that were just announced minutes ago from the folks over in the VSIN studios at Circa. We have a great group of guests that'll be rotating throughout the show today, including some former Circa Survivor champions. We're so excited to talk to you guys about Week 3 NFL action. We'll talk about where we ended up with our selections. We'll talk about why we ended up with on those selections. We'll even sprinkle in a little Grandissimo talk. Got David Baker and Russ Rosenblum here, and producer Nick as well, who's always really helpful in the background, helping us out. Let's start here with you, David. Like I said, the selection counts are out. We've got Seattle at 39.3%, Buffalo 19.8%, Bucks 12%, Packers 10.7%, Falcons 7%. And then Colts 4.2%, Chiefs 4%. Everybody else is under 1% after that. What's your immediate reaction to this?
Um, I think that the market and the prediction sites and, myself, I think we all kind of nailed this week. This was pretty much what most people thought. Seattle coming in around 40% and, the Bills around 15-ish. Yeah, I thought the Packers might be a little higher. But other than that, I know the prediction models had the Bucks higher and the Pack lower. Bucks came in about where I thought, pretty much in line with where I thought everything would be this week.
How about you, Russ? What are your big takeaways from this?
Yeah, I agree. Actually, I think we were pretty tight on also Seahawks, Bills, Bucks. We were pretty tight on the main pool. On Grandissimo, we're a little off, but we'll cover that later, I guess. But yeah, it was pretty much as expected. Seattle doesn't have a lot of great spots. This is a good spot to use them, and lots of people are using them.
We also learned there's 13 no picks and one person had the Dolphins, so there's 14 less people in the pool than we were aware of about an hour or so ago. Fellas, I always like to ask this question every week, and maybe this isn't the best week to ask this question because it sounds like neither of you were too surprised, but would you make any adjustments now that you see the numbers in front of you? Is there anything you'd do differently at this point? Would you put a little more on one team? Would you take a little more off of another team? Let's start with you, David.
Well, I guess this is a good spot then to say what I took, so I can say if I was
Yeah.
going to do anything different. I basically took about 60%, put them on the Seahawks, 30% on the Packers, and a little under 10% on Washington.
Mm.
Basically, this whole week came down to me. I knew where Seattle would land, and do I want to eat the chalk or not? I think the only thing that I might do, maybe I might put a little bit more on the Packers. I thought they would come in around maybe 15%. At 10%, maybe I'd like a little more. But I'm pretty happy with being heavy on the Seahawks, and we'll get into why, I'm sure, in just a little bit. But I think I basically stay where I was. Nothing really surprised me. So yeah, I'm happy where I am.
How about you, Russ?
We spread ours out a little bit more than we probably normally do, which we were torn about as we were looking at this. We ended up with not exactly, but I mean, we had probably 25% of our picks in the Bills, and then we still had 20% of the Seahawks, 23-ish on the Colts, and then just a couple of little bit on the Chiefs, a little bit on the Bucks. We felt it was tough. Usually I would rather take less on the team that I think is going to be the chalk, but as I'm sure David will allude to later, why he was looking seriously at Seattle, it's hard to just not take them in this pool this week. It's going to kind of destroy some of your other paths going forward. That said, I mean, I got 21% of my picks on them. I hope they lose. Nothing personal, David.
No, I fully understand that. I mean, I will say, this week has just been a week of to Seattle or not to Seattle.
Correct.
And every, show that I've been on and everybody that I've talked to, it basically just came down to, do I want to be upset and miserable on Saturday night, or do I want to be miserable on Monday? And basically, I knew if I went Seattle, I'd be miserable today because I don't want to be on the chalk. Nobody wants to be on the 40% chalk. But on Monday morning, if they win, I'm going to be so happy that I don't have to deal with this team, because you have to pick 20 winners, and Seattle's a fringe top 20 team. So if you can get one of those out of the way, especially because I did use some Baltimore and I've used a lot of Denver, and those are two of the top 10 to 12 teams. So I have to start mixing in some of these teams that I rank like, 15 to
18
20.
to 25, or sure, anywhere
Yeah,
there.
exactly.
Yep.
Yeah, 15 to 25. I've got to start mixing them in. So do I want to be miserable today, or do I want to be miserable for the whole season looking at Seattle? And I decided I'll just be miserable for the 24 hours between Saturday night and Sunday. And, assuming they win, I'll be extremely happy that I don't have to deal with, this mediocre team for the rest of the season. And that really is all it comes down to me is, I don't want to be on a 40% team, but if I have a 40% team that like I could conceivably find other spots for, then I'm way more excited to fade them. Whereas this team, I really didn't see one other spot that I liked.
Yeah, David, the point that you
Yeah,
make
there's
about, oh, go ahead, Russ.
nothing. No, I'll say there's nothing. I mean, you got to hope that, right now they're looking maybe 60% at Tennessee in week 12, right? That's not exactly a home run spot to take them. So, yeah.
The point that you made, David, about Seattle being one of these teams that you're going to feel really great if you can survive with them. I feel the same way about Arizona, and I've got a couple Arizona and Seattle tickets, and I'm like, man, if Seattle can just get through this week, I'm going to be feeling really good about my path here moving forward. Seattle's definitely one of those fringe teams for sure. Speaking of those Seahawks, a couple hours before Circa's deadline, after a lot of proxy deadlines, news dropped that Jackson Smith and Jigba has an illness. That's all we know. He's questionable with an illness. This is reminiscent of the Kyler Murray week 1 situation where we woke up on Sunday morning. Turns out he had diarrhea. We didn't know that at the time. We just knew it was an illness. David, did this impact in any way your decision with what percent of Seattle you took?
Well, what's funny with that is I've been really trying to hone in these predictions and seeing if I can beat some of these sites and get closer. And I had Seattle pay for exactly 40% all week long. And when that news came out, I lowered it to 37. And then afterwards, after I posted, I was like, that was stupid because most of the people use proxies and most of the people are in already. I had happened to just put mine in, but I don't think it really would have impacted it. I may have maybe switched like maybe 1 or 2 more onto Green Bay, but I was never really going to take any Bucks or Falcons or Colts for that matter. So I think that those were the 3 logical spots since the Bills were already gone. I didn't have access to them anymore. So that's kind of since I had already eliminated and decided that I was going to fade those teams. It kind of put me, it confined my options. Like I said last time, and I'll say on everything, I always want to have stances, and I'm just not a spray the board. If I'm out week 5, I'll still come on the show and talk about it, and you'd be heavily involved in Survivor, but I might not be in because I'm just not gonna buy five of the top 6 teams. I just don't do that. That's just not the way that I play the game.
Russ, talk to us about your selection.
Tony, sorry to interrupt you.
You're good.
Just some stream stuff. California Wager says best of luck to all of those survivors. California Wager, thank you for tuning into the stream. And also Mary on YouTube, thank you for the subscription. We appreciate it.
Heck yeah. Russ, can you break down for us where y'all landed? Former champs, where did you guys land with your picks and why?
Yeah, and we towards what David said, and I remember he mentioned last week, Mike and I don't tend to try to spray and pray, and yet this week that's kind of where we ended up. It was a little and it's funny because in some ways of the first 3 weeks of the season, I feel like this was the most normal Survivor week. There were games you could pick from. It wasn't just 1 or 2 games. If you wanted to get off a game, you could find another one. I really didn't want to take the Seahawks for all the reasons David mentioned, and yet I couldn't have nothing on the Seahawks. So once we decide to do that, it kind of skews like what I'm going to do with the rest of this because we didn't want to take a massive position on them. So then I'm kind of forced to take other positions elsewhere. We thought it'd be a decent spot, to take the Bills. It was okay. I thought we'd have a little bit less than the Bills, but it's close. Whatever's wrong with him. I don't think it impacts anything we're doing because we're trying not to take them anyway, right? We're taking them because they're in other good spots. Maybe I take 1 pick off them and move them someplace else. But I know where some of our other picks were, and I'm not sure I could match them up with the Colts anymore. The Chiefs, we'd add a pick to the Bucks. And I know Mike, who's not here tonight, he's at a wedding, which isn't his. And I know he had some concerns with some of the Bucks injuries. Their tackle, I believe, is out. So, we were initially going to be heavy Bucks. We were hoping that Daniels was going to be playing. I'm sure a lot of people were. And then we very likely are heavy on Washington. But it skewed all of this. If Daniels is playing, all of this is skewed for us because we would have been very heavy Washington. The Raiders are notoriously bad going to the East Coast and playing early, and that's when they're not on a short week, right? So I actually think even, we took last week, San Francisco. So you might think that we would have taken Washington for the same reasons, but we actually don't think they're in as good a spot there. But we'll see.
Fellas, the
We ha-
Bills barely got by the Dolphins on Thursday night. It was a 10-point game, but it was a lot closer than the score indicated. Am I the only one who wished I had put a little more on the Bills after they won that game? Because as I'm looking at the injury reports as they're coming out throughout the week, I'm like, oh, the Bucks are going to be down 3 offensive linemen. Seattle's got some injuries now. I found myself saying, you know what? I wish I'd been a little bit heavier with Buffalo. Do you guys feel that at all?
well, I
If
had
Miami
0.
wins, I doubt you feel that way. So
Very good
that's
point.
kind of how
Very
this
true.
works. It
Very
shouldn't
true.
work that way, but that's how it works.
Yeah, I mean, I had 0, so obviously I'd love to have something through, but just decided that since I have been heavy with some of the best teams with future value, that I had to take a stand at some point and fade some of these better teams in the NFL. So I just decided to not take that spot. But to what Russ said, I mean, I had Washington circled the whole time. I was
Right.
I was super excited to push in on, and Grandissimo, I had already made up my mind. I was playing Washington. We
Us
even
too.
ended up playing 2 of them in this in the 1K. But Tampa was the one for me. Tampa was the one that I said was going to be the best play from an EV standpoint, but one that I just didn't want to make. And I knew that people wouldn't select the Bucks for all the reasons that I didn't want to select the Bucks. They're down 2 offensive linemen.
3.
Later in the season, they're going to have Wirfs back. They're going to have a full strength Ibuka. They're going to have Godwin back, and they've got Carolina twice and the Saints twice. So that is all the reason I needed not to fade them. But when you look at a 6.5-point favorite that comes in at 12% versus 7-point favorite that comes in at 40%, I knew that the Bucks were the right play for this particular week, but I still didn't want to make it. I like the Jets on the spread. I put the Jets on my my contest picks, and so when I get to that situation, I know some people are a slave to the numbers, and that's fine. That's just they just run the EV and they just put it in. If that was the case, I would have played the Bucks because I was pretty confident it was the best EV play for this particular week. It just wasn't a play that Mr. Ball watcher, Mr. Ball knower, who who all the computer people shake their head at, I just didn't want to make. So I just chose to fade the Bucks.
Fellas, we got about 3 minutes before Jason joins us. Can you give me a minute explanation on where you went in Grandissimo and why? Go ahead, Russ.
Yeah, I mean, we ended up going with the Colts and the Chiefs because we like to confuse everybody like we did last week, taking the Niners. No, I actually thought Seattle would be higher. I thought between the Seahawks and the Bills, they might approach as high as 80%, 75, 80%, and they didn't. So, they approached just under 60. So knowing that, I don't know if I take a Seahawks or not, it's close. But we really, if we think they're going to be 70, 75% between those two teams, then we want to avoid those two teams. I mean, if it's going to be that big, there's such a reasonable probability one of them can lose, and there's a decent possibility both can lose. And you don't get a lot of opportunities in this thing to whack 30 or 40 or 50 or 60% of the people in one game, even when they're big favorites. So when I find those spots, I kind of want to avoid them, take the other side. So once we ruled those out, then it became, do we want to go with the Packers? We decided to fade the Packers this week. And we were initially going to go with the Bucks, and since we're fading them, it ended up being Chiefs Colts.
David, briefly, why'd you go with Seattle and Grandissimo?
Yeah, I went with Seattle just because just having looked at the first couple weeks, the first week everybody played the Broncos, and I could tell that everybody absolutely hated that pick. And the next week, they were more chalk averse, and I felt like this is a pretty sharp pool that understands that survivor picks you really can't play the top guys. So when everybody else zigs, if you just kind of stay pat, you're kind of zagging with, so that's kind of what I figured. Since we didn't play the Bills, for me, I've already explained my reasons for not taking the Bucks. To me, it was Packers or Seahawks. I may have considered Packers if I thought it was 8. I thought it'd be closer to 12 or 13. And I was pretty right on the Seahawks. I was going to say 20, but I didn't want to look too stupid if I was too wrong. I put 22 out there, so I only missed by 2. So, yeah, I'm very happy with where I am with the Grandissimo with the Seahawks. And also, I mean, I'm sure Russ would not want to be on the Chiefs at 8. I mean, that's
right.
He was hoping it'd be 4. And
correct.
And several
right.
people, did what he did. And that's kind of the risk you always run.
Speaking of the Chiefs, I feel like this is a good segue while I get Jason in here. Enzo on YouTube has a question. Would any of the guys be heavier on the Chiefs if in a tournament that doesn't have holiday slates, i.e. Splash Sports?
I'd say absolutely. So I do a video every week for oddshark.com, and the Chiefs were my pick for a traditional survivor pool without holiday implications. So I like the Chiefs matchup on Sunday night. Without the holidays, I like them a lot. With the holidays, I want absolutely nothing to do with it.
Cool. All right, we got Mr. Jason Lisk in here from Cool Genius. Welcome, Jason.
Thank you for having me.
That's
Jason
not Rachel.
Lisk.
That's not Rachel. Wait a second.
I'm coming on, and it's the fourth quarter of Mizzou, South Carolina, so I got to get this scheme.
Well, you're very nice of you to join us in the middle of that.
I didn't
Sweat
pay
going
attention to when that game was scheduled. Yeah.
Jason, welcome to the show, my friend. Good to work with you again.
Yeah, good to see you again.
I'm sure you've seen by now the Circa Survivor selection count.
Yep.
I'm going to go ahead and read it through again really briefly.
You do
Seattle,
your thing.
39.3%, Bills, 19.8%, Bucks, 12%, Packers, 10%, Falcons, 7%, Colts and Chiefs, about 4% each. What was your immediate reaction to these numbers when they came out?
I actually almost nailed them exactly. I know the guys are probably talking. I was kind of surprised I did. I thought the Colts were going to get steamed up. I had them at 4. That's where they ended. I thought they might rise late. I was slightly under on the Bills. I thought people might save the Bills for next week and week 5 more, but I was 3% off. So, the guys are probably. I was kind of surprised I did. So yeah, they came in about where I was thought. That's where they ended.
Gotcha. And guys, I'm getting a little feedback in my headphone. I don't know if
That's
you're
me.
hearing that
That's
or
me.
not.
Let me shut that.
Okay. Cool,
I'm shutting it down.
Sweet. If for those who aren't familiar with Jason's work, he does a whole lot of content over at Pool Genius, articles, videos, etc. Jason, this is very much in your wheelhouse area of expertise.
Yep.
So talk to me about how did you size up week 3? I mean, what do you think's a good move week 3? What's a terrible move week 3? What are your general thoughts?
It's a tough week because I mean I know you all have been breaking it down. It comes down to Seattle, how much you want to have on them, what position. I was off, and I know a lot of you were off Dallas completely last week. I thought that was slightly different because I thought here, not that Seattle doesn't have risk, but Seattle is a great pick for this contest if you get them through. So that's why it's like I didn't want to be completely off of them, but we look at 40%, which is what we were anticipating, 39, 40%. And as an advantage player, you also that's how the pool could have a 25% week, where suddenly we're at 5,000. So you also want to have a piece of that. So we ended up a little bit on Seattle, but underweight, and using them on our relatively lower value entries that had used a Baltimore or a Philadelphia or one that used Denver, Detroit, and didn't use the weaker teams in the first 2 weeks.
Do you mind me asking, when you say a little bit underweight, roughly?
Two of our 10. We have 10.
Okay, that's considerably underweight. So then what were your other 8 on?
Our most is on Green Bay. And that was just, I mean, there was no comfortable pick. And so we used 2 on Kansas City. I'm willing to do that. I'm willing to use a holiday team. I don't want to use multiple. And so those went on entries where we hadn't used other holiday teams yet. And so we did sprinkle Kansas City because we knew they would be low ownership and thus probably the best EV of the 70 to 75% teams.
Gotcha. Over on my Twitter handle at LastMenPod, we did a little poll and we said, did Jackson Smith and Jigba's illness, where he became questionable a couple hours before the game started, did this impact you? And I said, only vote on this if you are someone that was planning on taking Seattle. I don't want non-Circa people, non-Seattle people voting. Yeah. And 40% of the people-ish said, yeah, it impacted me. Did it impact you at all, Jason?
Well, I mean, we had to have our picks into the proxy because I'm not there in Vegas. We had I put mine in.
Would it have impacted you if that wasn't the case?
Not off 20%. If I were above weight, yes, it might have made me pause. But at 20%, the reason I'm playing is if those entries get through, it's the pick that you want to be. You want to have some of it. So, I mean, we're gonna have lots of sweats. Maybe it makes you a little sweatier, right? And and maybe it decreases you by 1% or 2. But the Seattle pick makes sense because you have the best path odds by not having used everybody else this week.
Yeah.
If they get through, and there's really only 2 other spots where they might bubble up, unless they're substantially better than we think right now.
Of these big favorites on the board, I want to ask everybody this question. We'll start with Jason, then we'll go around the horn here. Of these big favorites on the board, from Seattle all the way through the Chiefs, everybody 4% and above, who is the most likely to lose? I'm not talking about EV. I'm not talking about having anything to do with Circa. Just football. Who's the most likely team to lose? Start with you, Jason.
Yeah, I mean, we did not play Tampa. We took a stand against Tampa, Atlanta, Indy. The Atlanta play was more that I thought they might get steamed up, and I think they actually have sneaky good future value that people might not think, and they come up in several good spots.
Agreed.
Tampa's partially I think it's a bad spot. They're 2-0, but they're 31st in net yards per pass attempt. The line issues have already been there. They just happen to have scored in high leverage spots in key moments and hit touchdown passes. It's pretty rare that a team scraping the bottom in pass efficiency through 2 weeks is 2-0. And it's the type of team I want to play as a bettor when they're catching 6.5 or when they're laying 6.5 and you're catching 6.5 with the opponent. So that's kind of where I stand there. I also think they're going to be a big, valuable play in week 14. That's the 1 week that doesn't really have like one of these teams bubble up like a New England or somebody like that we currently project with a good matchup. And everybody else on that slate is the teams that are above them in future value. Buffalo, Baltimore, Green Bay. And so you might get people that show up to week 14, and if they also don't have Tampa, they are in trouble. So that's the other thought is just hold on for Tampa Bay for there if I don't think it's a great spot now. And so Tampa's my answer. Sorry that I went a little long.
No, that was great. That was perfect. David, how about you? Which of these big favorites most likely to go down tomorrow?
Before I address that, I just want to thank Jason for coming on because I sent him an email, but I found his site this year and it's fantastic. If you guys haven't looked at Pool Genius, you can just type in the name of your team and it'll just seed it all in there. You can put, like, if you have partnerships, you can put 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, no matter how many entries you have, it'll put it in there and you can adjust the percentages on there. You can see the pass. It's a really good tool. So I just want to thank
thank you
for coming on and I think you do a really
I
good
can't
job.
take credit for that stuff, David. That's the smart guys and the the engineers on the back end. But
I mean you have a Mizzou hat on, so I mean
well, so you knew I wasn't engineering it.
I just threw a link to Pool Genius in the chat if anybody wants to check out what ODB and Jason are talking about.
But I will say, Jason, like the 5 minutes that he's talked has said basically word for word exactly how I've thought about this week. I did as well. I faded Tampa, Atlanta, and the Colts, and I thought Tampa mainly just because they're going to be healthier and have those 4 spots later on in the year. We're first Carolina and the Saints. I think they could, coming off of a short week this week against a tough defensive team in Houston, having to go home. If you remember correctly, last year, they were big favorites versus the Broncos at home in week 3, and the Broncos went in there with very little fanfare and beat the crap out of them. I'm not anticipating the Jets doing it, but I think it's definitely within the realm of possibility. So the Bucs are the one that I think has the biggest likelihood to lose. We know Tyrod Taylor's a pretty competent quarterback. I don't think he's going to throw the ball around the yard, and Baker could get a little too hot for himself and try to force it in there. So I'm with Jason on that. I think the Bucs have the best chance of losing of the big favorites.
Russ, biggest favorite most likely to go down tomorrow?
Yeah, I mean it's probably the Bucs as well. I mean, maybe Atlanta. Atlanta, I don't think has looked particularly good. Like Minnesota, I'm still not convinced. I don't know. Like that, their opening week against Chicago, they looked terrible until 5 minutes were left in the game. So it's difficult for me to give Atlanta too much credit. So we also faded Atlanta. We looked at them and we didn't have anything on Atlanta. We actually think the Colts, I mean, it's not the answer to the question, but it's similar to what Jason was going through. It's not so much that we think some of these teams are bad. It's that there are reasons to use some or not use others other than that. And, Indy, I know Mike had penciled in preseason as being significantly better than people thought they would be. And then we're deciding if that's how we feel, then this is probably the time to use them. I mean, they're not going to be incredibly heavily owned. And then I look out at their schedule, and even if it turns out that they are better than people think, they'll be bigger favorites against the Raiders, and they'll be bigger favorites against Tennessee at home, and they'll still be dogs in pretty much all their other games. except maybe Jacksonville, instead of 54%, maybe they'll be 58%, 60%. Like, you're never going to find another spot with this team where it's going to be 70, other than Tennessee, even if they're good. So we decided if we think they're good, then you may as well just use them now. And if we're wrong, they're not good, we don't need to be saving them anyway, because we won't want to use them later either.
You gotta, yeah. I mean, they got steamed up to 5.5 today,
I
and
know.
you have a 4% team that's a 5.5-point favorite. Instead,
I
I
love
have
that.
a 40%. I have a 40%
Right.
team as a 7-point favorite. So
Correct.
you definitely got a lot of positive EV there. I mean,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Thrilled with that one. And it's funny because I know this isn't the answer people want to really hear. In some ways, I think Seattle could be the most likely to lose of the group, which, even though they're the big favorite, there's just something. New Orleans is not good. No one's going to say New Orleans is good, but they've been a little pesky at points. And maybe if they can put a little bit together, they can, get something going there. Like, I'm not looking to bet their money line, but I think there's, you never know. There's a chance in that game that Seattle, like I remember last year when we had Seattle and the Giants flew out there, and it looked like, that's like the lock game. I mean, there's no way Seattle's going to lose to the Giants in Seattle. I think it might have been week 3 or 4 too. It was fairly early in the season, and the Giants just, went out there and smoked them. So
Yeah. I was on VSiN earlier this week and I made 2 points, 2 anti-Seattle points. One, Seattle's 4-9 straight up in its last 13 home games. Where is this home field advantage that Seattle was known for a couple of years ago? And 2, Granderson leads the NFL in sacks with 3.5. Seattle has the 25th best offensive line according to Pro Football Focus. So there is a path. There's some concern there in Seattle. And I'll say one more thing too that I didn't mention on that show. The Saints have very fast wide receivers. And Seattle has 2 safeties that are banged up. So just from a matchup perspective, I think there is a little bit of concern there. Jason, before we let you go, brother, one quick question for you that I'm going to put you on the hot seat for. You're not expecting this question. Did weather impact your decision at all this week? There's 3 or 4 games, including Seattle, Tampa, and I want to say Jacksonville even maybe, where I'm seeing like 30, 40% chance of rain, could get heavy at times. Did you give that any thought this week or not really?
Not really. I mean, I guess you're at risk if it's really severe of line movement late that we can't react to on Sunday morning. But no, I just hope the Chiefs don't get hit with it, and I hope Cleveland's always at risk, but not usually in September. And so we got the Packers there. But yeah, I'm glad you all didn't say the Chiefs. By the way, nobody actually said the team that's 0-2 and can't score right now and can't have its tight end catch a ball on the goal line. So I'm glad you all didn't throw the Chiefs under the bus as the most likely to just go to 0-3. Happy to hear that.
Absolutely. Well, Jason, I know you want to get back to that Mizzou game, so thank you so much for the time. I really appreciate you on the show, man. Take care.
Yep.
Thanks, Jason.
All right, Nick, go ahead and pop Rachel in whenever she joins us.
Alrighty. In the meantime, while I work on that, a few questions for you guys. Few from YouTube says, if Seattle is 40%, do you see value in being a 90 to 100% on them rather than 0? Rather than them fading the chalk, can you fully overjam the chalk, if that makes sense?
I mean, sure. What if you only had 1 pick, right? So I'm not saying it means you should take the chalk, but by definition, if you have 1 pick, you're always going to have a higher percentage of your picks on a team than anybody else does, right? Than the field does. So
I actually like that question. I'm a firm believer that if you play the chalk, then jam it, then go overweight. So that's how I play it. That's why I did 60% on them. Wow, Rachel, you're upright this week.
I know. I've been working on it.
Rachel, Aria, welcome to the show. We want to ask you right off the bat, where did you land with Circa Survivor this week and why?
Yeah, so I landed on what you guys all hate. I picked Tampa.
Oh.
I'm not worried about the linemen. Do we see linemen scoring touchdowns? I don't think so. I'm ready to go. I mean, we're playing the Jets. They suck. Pittsburgh beat them. And we all know how bad they suck, David. Again, I hate to pick on David again, but...
No, you don't. You love to pick on me.
Yeah, okay, a little bit. But congrats on chip leader, by the way. I saw you day 1 yesterday. So.
Thank you.
But yeah, I went with the Bucks, and I feel good about it. I'm ready to go. I think it's a great pick. So hopefully I'm hope for all the people out there that did go with the Bucks. Hubby went with Falcons, which was actually my first choice, but I don't want to go with the same one. And I feel like GTO is not to go. You know, we only have the 2 picks here. So, and I only have one myself right now. So I don't want to go with, well, I never want to go with the chalk, but I also don't want to go with anyone that he's picking. In case I do get knocked out, I have my backup pick.
Oh my God.
Sorry,
Sure.
guys.
All good, all good.
Happening in the background here.
Rachel,
So-
paint this. Go ahead. Go ahead, David.
I was just going to ask the question. Can you explain what your Sunday looked like last week when Dallas was losing to when they threw a long
Okay.
bomb?
Were you guys thinking about me when that game was happening?
Of course.
There's a
I
chance.
hope you
There's
guys were
definitely a
thinking
chance.
about me. I was sweating bullets. No, like, you know, when you watch a scary movie, that was me. Like, I was one eye like this because I couldn't watch. I was like, something bad is going to happen. And you kind of miss the bad stuff if you have one eye looking. Like, that's what I was doing. But oh my gosh, that was amazing. What a wild game. Hey, I got him out of the way, right?
Rachel, I wasn't thinking about you because I had a pretty heavy position on the Cowboys and I was
Okay.
sweating and I was only thinking about myself. And then after that, guys, so I'm recovering psychologically from this ridiculous game.
Yeah.
Then I lose one on Denver and Indy with that crazy finish. And then I look over and I see the Cardinals starting to let that game slip away. I'm already at this low point from losing the Broncos entry, and I'm like, Cardinals, don't do it. That was a gnarly finish, that Cardinals-Panthers game. It looked like the referees and the Cardinals at times wanted the Panthers to win that one. It was scary.
Yeah, it was scary.
That was rough.
A couple more 15-yard penalties, they might have had a shot.
Oh, God.
They
the
needed to get
roughing the
4 of them.
passers.
They needed 4 to get that 60 yards down the field. Might have done it.
The roughing the passers. And then all right, I brought it up. I need a quick comment from you guys. This will just be therapy for me. I need to vent a little bit. Can we talk about the leverage call just really briefly in that Denver Indy game? Scale of 1 to 10, how much bullshit was that?
10.
Thank you. I needed that.
You got robbed.
And
Completely. And then you had the missed field goal before that from the Broncos too, 43-yarder or whatever. So a field goal shouldn't have even won the game for him at that point. That was a tough loss.
So
for sure.
let's ask Rachel. So so if you have the Bucks and hubby has the Falcons, which one gets the main TV?
Ooh.
Oh, we do though. We have the YouTube TV and you can pick the 4 screens that you want, the split screens. So we'll have both of those on.
I get the main TV.
Yeah, well, he claims he gets the main TV, but it's not true. Yeah, but we do that cool like 4-way split.
he'll get the main TV in the garage. Something like
Right.
that.
We're in a temporary place right now, so we only have the one TV in our condo right now. So until we get our house in about a month, then we'll have the sports book back up and running.
Did
Can we
you
get like a
use the-
GoFundMe for you guys to get another TV? Can we put
Yes,
that up?
please start that.
Did you use the HMSD method this week, or was it a different method?
No, it wasn't that method.
You didn't use that method?
It's the HX, what is it? It's
HS.
WSMD.
HSMD, yeah.
His spelling isn't so good.
WSMD.
Yeah, it's we're
Oh,
close.
W. Oh, yeah, W. Yeah.
People can watch past episodes of Saturday Night Sweat to know exactly what we're
Right.
talking about
Exactly.
Yeah. And you know what I wanted to say too? I know a lot of you are on Seattle and obviously the game looks really good, but I will say that New Orleans, even though they suck the most, D, basically, I mean, they've been within one score all their other games. And so I kind of feel like if there's going to be an upset, and there really hasn't been any upsets so far, like, I don't know. I get nervous about that one.
Yes, the Saints have been very, very, very feisty so far this season. And I can't wait. Paulie's going to be on the show a little bit later. He had earmarked the Saints as a team that he believes is the worst team in the NFL, and I'm going to ask him if he still thinks that. Rachel, before we let you go, I got a question for you. My prediction was that there was going to be a lot of people on the Bucks this week, partially because they just played on primetime, and they looked really good despite
Yeah.
injuries. So did you watch that last Bucks game, and did that have any influence over you picking them this week?
Yeah, definitely in general. Like I said, I mean, my first pick was Falcons, but if I had to go second one, I'm not going to go with the chalk. And I looked at it was pretty easy for me. Like last week, I thought it was such a hard pick. I couldn't figure it out. This week, I feel like there was a lot of good options. It's just like, which one do you want to go with now to set you up for later? I want to save Green Bay, Bills, Ravens, all that. So it was a pretty easy pick for me, and I loved how they played. And yeah, just as simple as that.
Nice. I love it. Well, thank you so much for joining us,
Yeah.
Rachel. You are welcome on this show anytime. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rachel.
Fantastic.
Bye.
That was Rachel Aria. She's wonderful as always. Nick, let me know when James is ready to join us.
Yep, I'm admitting James right now, and this is actually a good segue because I think there's a question in the chat that is going to be a James question, you know, as the head of the proxy part of Survivor Sweat. But the question from Jacob G, can someone get eliminated before a holiday round by using up all Thanksgiving/Christmas teams? Has that ever happened?
Ooh, I don't know if it's ever happened, but it absolutely can happen, and it says that right in the rules. James, are you aware if that's happened before in Circa? James, I'm not sure if you can hear us.
Can you hear us, James? Like wave your arm around or something.
All right, I don't think James can hear us, but I'll go ahead and say it is very apparent to me every season there is less than 1% of the field, but I'm telling you it exists, that is completely unaware that you have to save teams for the holidays. Even though the folks at Circa do a great job. I mean, when I signed up, they reminded me about the holidays when I signed up. Then they give you a big piece of paper that reminds you about the holidays. Even still, it is very apparent to me that there's a small handful of people every year who is not planning ahead at all, and they're burning through their holiday teams. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's actually happened, but I don't know for a fact that someone has used. I've seen
don't
people walk into
think it's
Thanksgiving
happened.
with just one underdog and things like that. But yeah, you don't think it has, Russ?
I don't think so because it's only been a few, like, I mean, not a few, but 4, 5 where this has been. I don't think the
Yeah.
first year or two of this, they did this in 2020. I don't believe they did. And so I would have remembered the equivalent of a no pick from 2022 through today because we've been following it fairly closely. So it would have had to have been like 21. I don't think it's happened. But yes, we were asked last year, and it's the obvious answer. We reached out to them to confirm even if everybody else loses on Thanksgiving, if they had a team and you didn't, you don't share with them. Even though their team didn't win. I know that was the question. I know that is what you answered. But just to be clear, you have no team, they have a team, because people are like, well, if their teams lose, then nobody won, right? Doesn't matter, you still lose. It's a no pick.
Interesting.
If you have a no pick, you've lost, even though everybody else lost. You're considered having lost before they took the field.
I could see that coming into play on Christmas more likely than Thanksgiving.
Absolutely.
Toward the end of the season. That's fascinating. James, are you able to hear us yet, brother? All right. I don't know if someone can send James a text here because it seems like he's.
Yeah, I'm gonna do
James.
that, actually.
James and I are talking about it. He'll be on soon. He's just having some tech difficulties, per usual. That's how it goes. But
all good, all good. No worries.
Maybe he's out there buying the entries before everybody else gets a chance to.
Fellas, go ahead, David.
I was just going to say one thing that Russ said and Rachel said that I do agree with is I do think that Seattle does have a legitimate chance to lose this football game. I definitely did not choose them because I thought they were a lock to win. I just more held my nose and said, I just want to get a bad team out of the way. And I definitely think they can lose. I'm not thrilled about this pick. Like I said when I made it, I was going to hate it from Saturday night till Sunday. And I mean, I hope that I'm happy Monday morning, but it would not surprise me at all if Seattle lost this football game. I don't think they're a very good team. So, yeah, I'm just hoping to get them out of the way. That's kind of how I looked at it. So, yeah, just because I chose them a lot doesn't mean I like them.
If you're rooting for Seattle out there, folks, this is my advice. When the inactives come out 90 minutes before the game, if you want Seattle to win, root for a guy with the last name Fuaga to be out for the Saints.
If you're rooting for Seattle out there, folks.
I think. Oh, so we got a little feedback.
Probably James. I think we can hear you, James.
For the game.
I hear myself too. There we go. So yeah, keep an eye on Fuaga, the starting tackle for the Saints. He hasn't practiced all week, but he's questionable to play. I think that'd be a big downgrade for the Saints if he's not able to play. James, can you hear us okay, brother?
I can hear you now. Sorry about the technical difficulties.
Oh, no worries at all. We bring James on the show every single week to give us an update for what the Survivor Sweat marketplace looks like. I also want to remind people, as we're talking to James, look down in the description below. You can find a link to the Survivor Sweat marketplace. So if you're intrigued by something he says, you want to check it out yourself, highly encourage you to do that. And check out the marketplace throughout the season, not just today, not just next week. It's fascinating to me to watch and see how the market fluctuates as we go. But first, James, before you give us a little breakdown of the marketplace, really quickly, for someone that's maybe hearing about it for the first time, what is the Survivor Sweat marketplace?
Yeah, so it's the best way to describe it is I always say it's an eBay for sports contest entries. So it's a chance for buyers and sellers to come together. Those that are out of the contest or that did not join the contest have a chance to buy into a share of an entry. They can either buy a minority share and they sweat along with the picks that you make, or you can take over control of an entry. You can buy a majority stake, take over control of the entry. We transfer the entry to your profile so that you have a chance to control that entry. And then for sellers, it's a chance for them to monetize their entry throughout the season. If they want to start selling small shares as the contest gets deeper and these entries become worth tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars, it's a great chance for people to monetize their entries before the finish line.
And if I'm selling an entry with you, how much do you guys keep of that?
Yeah, so the marketplace, there's a 10% marketplace fee. The seller pays that fee. So the seller decides what the listing price is. There's no additional fees that the buyer pays. The price they see on the website is the all-in price. It includes obviously the marketplace fee, but it also includes the proxy services. Most of these entries come with proxies already built in. There's a handful that could sell that don't have a proxy service. In that case, Survivor Sweat provides the proxy service as well.
Oh, it's fantastic. And for people who haven't seen the marketplace before, you can check out and see when you're shopping, essentially, you can see what teams are used. So there might be an entry on there for $2,000 and another entry also for $2,000, but one of them's used the Ravens and the Eagles and the other one's used, worst teams so far. So definitely check those out as you move along. And if you're selling, you get to choose the percentage as you move along. Maybe you want to say in week 2, I've got 3 entries. I've paid $3,000 to get into this thing. I just want to get my 3,000 back, be even, and then be playing with house money at that point. You can sell an entry for 19% if you want. You decide it as you move along. It's a really, really cool service. It's almost, I was just having this conversation the other day. Survivor Sweat Marketplace has been around, is it 2 years now? 3?
2 years, yep.
2 years. It's
This
like
is our,
hard.
we just started our 3rd year. We kicked off halfway through the season 2 years ago. So 2.5 if you want to be technical.
Gotcha. So 2.5 years. It's new. But it's almost hard to remember what Circus Survivor was like before the marketplace. When it came down to hedging at the end of the season, how do I monetize? It's an absolute game changer to have the marketplace as a piece of this community now. It's awesome. It's good stuff. What can you tell us about the marketplace? Are there any Grandissimo chunks on there? I did see one earlier this week.
There was one, and it did sell. Yeah, there was a Grandissimo share, a small percentage sweat along that did sell. Those are not that frequent, so when they go up in the marketplace, they sell fairly quickly. And that one sold the same day that it was listed. There was entries. We sold Grandissimo shares, we sold Circa Millions shares, and we sold Survivor shares. So we sold shares in every contest during this past week. It actually was a really busy week. There was close to 50 different transactions during the course of the week. Most of them were minority shares. It was interesting. A lot of people were selling, between 1% and 3%. And there were people that were coming in and paying a fairly big premium. Those shares were selling for roughly $80 a point, which equates to an $8,000 value. Obviously, the entries right now are worth $1,100. So it's selling close to 8 times face for those small minority shares. And then we had a handful of, I think there was 7 entries that sold pick control. So there was, 7 entries that gave up their pick control, still kept a minority share to sweat along. But there were 7 people that came in and bought entries to take over control.
Fantastic. What other things do you want to make sure people know about the Survivor Sweat Marketplace, James?
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's only going to heat up here as there's more eliminations. It was busy last week with still only we're still with 90% of the field in, only 10% eliminated. I think these people that were buying the minority shares, I think they see the storm coming, and I think they're looking to diversify and get shares of a couple different entries. And so I think that's kind of what we saw last week. A lot of people were coming in and buying these shares, and there's a handful of buyers that were buying a couple different stakes in different teams. So I think it was a chance for them to diversify, before the storm comes here.
James, quickly, can you talk about sort of the paperwork that's involved? Because I think there's probably some people hearing this that are going to be a little hesitant. They're like, what do you mean I'm going to buy a piece of someone else's entry? Like, what if they screw me over? You know what I mean? And they've got some hesitancy. So can you talk about sort of the behind the scenes process that you guys go through to help out in that way?
Yeah, I mean, the company was founded by lawyers, so there's lawyers involved in the process. There's a contract that's obviously involved between the buyer and seller. When you come in, you make a purchase, you put 10% down, and at that point, that triggers a contract, and each party has a chance to review it. Once that contract is signed, obviously, then the money's collected, the shares transferred. At the end, there's paperwork that's filled out, and once that paperwork is filled out, you actually collect your money directly from Circa. So Circa will pay you directly once that paperwork is filled out. It's called an IRS form 5754, but it's a fairly smooth process. We've been doing this for several years. Last year, we had over 25 players that bought shares of the different survivor entries, and they cashed for over $2 million through the marketplace. So it's like I say, we're in our third year here. It's been tried and tested, but there's a peace of mind. Like I say, there's lawyers involved, there's contracts involved. It is a safe and secure process.
Can I ask James? So if I have 5 entries left and I want to sell a piece, can I just list all 5 together and allow somebody to buy a package of all 5 that way? Because obviously the picks don't always, they kind of work in conjunction with each other, so they don't have to choose which one of the 5 picks they get.
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, you can do a package deal. We had a package that was in the marketplace preseason. But yeah, you could put your package together. We actually last year, the NFL Wise guys were the last group of entries. They had 6 entries very deep in the season, and they listed that 6-pack as a package. And they not the whole thing, they were selling minority shares. I think they sold 5% here and there, but they did sell throughout their deep run last year, and they sold it as a package. So yeah, you can list it as a package. If you do want to list in a package, you have to reach out to us because it requires us to put the package together and list it. But you can do that.
James, I have a couple questions from you from the chat. First one comes from none other than Josh Aryeh himself. Does Survivor Sweat guarantee the money?
So there's do we guarantee the money? There's a process, like I say, at the end for collection of the prize money. There is we're involved in that process. We work closely with the buyer, seller, and Circa to ensure the payouts are paid according to the contract.
Sweet. And then the next one says, James, at what point do the players start looking to swap shares with other players?
Yeah, that's another great question. So right now, like I said, people are buying and selling shares. When it gets very deep in the contest, there are swaps that take place, and we assist in that process as well. So you can swap shares. It typically happens, like I say, very late in the contest, usually maybe like week 14 or later, maybe just past Thanksgiving is when people might start looking at doing some swaps. But you could do that early, but it typically happens late in the contest.
Fantastic. James, thank you so much for coming on the show. The website is survivorsweat.com. Check out the marketplace. Like I said earlier, keep an eye on it throughout the season. It's fascinating to see how it fluctuates. James, thanks so much.
Fantastic. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, James.
Awesome. All right, fellas, I want to ask you if you have any hot takes for this week, whether it be a team, whether it be a percentage of teams that are going to get knocked out. Give me something that you think might surprise people with week 3. I'll put you on the spot here, David.
Ooh, well, it's time for some of these 6-7 point teams to have like super sweats. Yeah, it's been kind of, I mean, there haven't really even been many sweats. I mean, Denver was a fake sweat week 1, and Arizona was kind of a fake sweat week 2. I mean, really only Dallas has been the only one that was kind of gone back and forth. But I think we're going to all be in for some sweats this week. It's a tough week when every spread is 5 to 7 points. Like normally there's 1 or 2 or 3 of them, but I think there's like 6 or 7 of them this week. So we're definitely going to be in for some, and I'll be shocked if we're having this conversation next week and there's not a little bit of carnage. At least the fact that the Bills went through and the Hawks are such a heavy favorite. I mean, if the Hawks just win, that just guarantees 60% of the field is getting through. So right. I don't think we're going to have a ton of carnage, but I do think that, all the 4 to 12% owned teams, I think we're going to have multiple teams that have sweats and we're going to lose something. So I'll say we'll have at least double as many people out next week as we have this week.
Nice. All right. How about you, Russ? What are your predictions for week 3?
It's so tough, right? Because if like you said, if Seattle wins, you can't really lose more than, realistically more than 14% of the field or 12, like everybody else almost has to lose. It's really tough. I mean, to lose too much of the field. So I don't know. I'd like to see Seattle lose, like I said, but maybe 14%. And just sort of a weird comment, which I know I'll regret making. One of their justifications for taking KC here was, in general, they don't look as good as they've looked in the past. They're still a very good team, but they just don't, they don't seem to have that certain something that they've just had year after year. And they've also played 2 tough games. But if they really can't win this game, and then they got to go play Baltimore, and I know I always regret saying this, but a lot of these other games that I would be quote unquote saving them for, I'm not sure how warm and fuzzy I'd feel about. At some point, do they just sort of peel? Like, I don't know. So it'll be an interesting game there for sure. And the Giants, even though we took KC and Grandissimo, the Giants always seem to show up as live dogs in big games for whatever reason, even when they've not been a good team. So it'll be this should be a fun weekend. Like the other weeks, I mean, they're all fun, but the other weekends were, if you were trying to get off a game, it was just really hard to find another one. Like David said, this week there are 5, 6, 7. Take your pick. You can pick one. Which one do you like? So
Russ,
should be fun.
I have a question that I think would be a Russ style question from the chat, just because before the pod you were like, "I'm the math guy." You said
no,
it, not me.
not the math guy. I'll give you my quote on that in a second, but yeah, go ahead. David will appreciate this quote because yeah. Go ahead.
The Sport asks how much of your usual handicapping process goes into your weekly survivor pick compared to when you're betting sides normally.
So it's funny because, it's funny, this indirectly goes to my thing about it being a math person or being a gambler, right? So people that know me from playing poker, the people that, like David, the people that really play poker, I'm viewed as like a nit. I am not viewed as the guy that has a lot of gamble, right? But the people that know me that don't play poker, like, just civilians, like normal people, they think I'm like a total degenerate. And the same thing is true on the math side. I have friends that like don't know any math. They think I'm a mathematical genius. When I talk to my math friends, they think I'm mathematically illiterate, right? So it's really like, and I like to try to bridge the gap and learn from both of them. But the reality is when we're focused on Survivor, we're actually doing, I mean, Mike's always breaking down the games mostly anyway. So we're already breaking them down, but it's funny because when we have a position, the position ends up being so big because of Survivor. There's really, like, I don't want to make such a large bet where it's going to be meaningful, right? And so it's actually, while we're still in Survivor, we'll make small bets, just like we call principal bets. Like we like the side, we're going to make a small bet on it, but it's never the size bet where we're even at the smallest remote risk that the book wouldn't take it, put it that way. Right. So because we have such a big position, like in Grandissimo, like we really do like the Colts here. Maybe we will make a bet on the Colts, but I don't know, because we have so much riding on that pick in Grandissimo. How much more am I going to bet? Right. So it does make it tricky.
Speaking of Grandissimo, Russ, last week you guys were on the 49ers. We talked about it on the show. You were the only one on the 49ers, $100,000 entry. Talk to me a little bit about watching that game last week, because it was a little sweaty with Mac Jones and the 49ers there.
A little. I mean, and it closed out. It was funny because I was giving Mike a hard time because allegedly I'm the math guy and he's not. And he came in saying that he thought the fair line should be 5.5, and when the game ended 5. Right?
Yeah.
But I never really felt overly concerned. I mean, the 49ers seemed to be in control most of the time in the game. The league got cut near the end. It's the Dallas game that really aggravated the hell out of me. Like, we had somebody we were watching with, he has 3 picks in Survivor. He had 2 on Dallas. I don't remember the other pick. With maybe 3 minutes left, he was like, I lost. He just walked out. He left the room. He was finished, right? And not like angry, just like, that was dumb. He just walked out. He couldn't believe he actually won. It would be the equivalent. He's a horse bettor too. It'd be the equivalent if he ripped the ticket and threw it. Like if he could, he probably would have ripped the ticket. He didn't think there was any chance. And I'm still looking at this game going, I'm still at a complete loss as to why you're throwing a ball like 70 yards downfield in overtime when you can run a couple more plays and you're basically free rolling, right? You can try a field goal for the win or run out the clock for a tie, and a tie is not a terrible thing for them there. So it was just a very strange dynamic. And I'll ramble a bit. One thing that we were talking about that I'm not sure if people take into account or not, it's pretty obvious. You look at the Dallas kicker and what a weapon he is.
Mm-hmm.
Knowing that he can even plausibly kick from 70. Now that's all very obvious, but the thing that maybe is a little bit less obvious, it changes your entire defensive structure when you know that guy's on the field.
Yeah.
or could be put on the field. Like if you're in a situation where it's 3rd and 20 from the team's own, 40-yard line, 43-yard line, the defense is always guarding the sticks. They're going to let you get 14 yards, 15 yards, 16 yards, because you probably aren't going to go on 4th and 7, and you're not kicking like the 64-yard field goal. Here they can't do that. Here they've actually got to start guarding at the 50-yard line because he's going to kick a 67-yarder. And when you do that, you're leaving guys open deep. Like you can't just cover the sticks. It's more than just the points he puts up. I think he's going to completely change the way defenses have to play on 3rd and long. And I think that's going to be an interesting dynamic in Dallas games going forward. And I would think Jerry Jones would man up and pay this guy already because they didn't have to pay Parsons. And like what did Tucker make in his peak? Maybe $7 million? Like, I mean, you can get off as
Right.
NFL players go that have major impact on a game. I don't think he's getting enough credit. He's getting credit for the long field goals, but I don't think he's getting credit for putting defenses in a box.
It's also a good note to keep in mind if you're a live bettor out there. The Cowboys in an overtime situation or when there's 3 minutes left in a close game, it's a big edge for sure. Especially to your point, Russ, now with the new kickoff rules where the ball is sometimes coming out to the 35. So the ball comes out to the 35 and you need 15 yards. That's a piece of cake.
Correct.
You need 15 yards to get into his field goal range. He's a weapon. I will say this, though, despite having that weapon as someone that was on Dallas last week, it was rough. The point that angered me the most was roughly 2.5, 3 minutes left when the Cowboys were punting. I'm like, they're playing for the tie. Ties lose in Circa Survivor. They're playing for the tie. You got to be kidding me. It was, I think, 4th and 5, 4th and 6, 4th and 4, 40-ish yard line. I don't remember the exact details, but I obviously want them to go for it.
Of course.
In that situation, like big time. And I had some live bet hedges too on the Giants money line at that point, just some like panic bets. And I'm like, oh God, if it ties, I'm gonna lose my Circus Survivor entries and then not win my hedges either. So it was getting pretty gnarly in that game. That was a tough one to watch.
Yeah, that's the worst way. And for the record, by the way, for people new here, at the end of the year here, if you make it down to the last 5-10 people and it's the last week or two of Circa and you're looking to hedge, Circa will let you bet ties. So you will be able to, early in the season, nobody bothers because nobody's really looking to bet those. But your concern is very, very real. I mean, I've seen people bet 100,000, 200,000 as a hedge on their Survivor entry. And if they don't bet tie, they're really exposed.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Fellas,
by the way, yeah.
Well, continue your thought, Tony, then I'll go.
All right, cool. I was just going to say, now with the new overtime rules where each team gets a chance to score, even if the first team scores a touchdown, I panic a little more now when my Circus Survivor team goes into overtime. It's already a panic because ties lose and there's only 10 minutes left. But now the chances of it ending in a tie are actually increased. So overtime is even more uncomfortable.
Of course it is. And think about it. You're not really taking, it's very rare you're taking an outright dog in Survivor. Something had to go very wrong. You saved the team.
Yeah, good point.
They have no quarterback, right? So however much of a favorite they are, like if they're 70% to win, I don't know, David, can a team be more than 55 in overtime?
Yeah, probably not.
57. I mean, it's very, very hard. I mean, there's so much variance. You might have one possession. Like that's it, right?
Yeah.
So it's of course you're going to sweat if your team goes to overtime. It's a terrible spot to be in.
Fellas, I just got a notification that Paulie Howard from Follow the Money on VSiN is here. Let's get him.
All right, now I can shut up. I stalled as long
fast.
as I could.
Alrighty. And he is loading in
now. He can go, who the hell took the Colts? Punish me again.
Waiting for that to load. There he is with the VSiN shirt right there. Paulie, welcome to the show, brother. How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Not too bad at all. Second week in a row that you join us on the show. We're really thankful for that. I'm sure you've seen them already, obviously, but I'm going to go ahead for our audience and read the numbers that we learned about roughly an hour ago. Seahawks, 39.3%. Bills, 8.8%. Bucks, 12%. Packers, 10%. Falcons, 7%. Colts, 4.2%. Chiefs, 4%. Everybody else under 1%. Anything surprise you there that you weren't maybe expecting?
No. David Baker was on the show Friday, and I was watching the show earlier. I agree. You had to stomach Seattle here. The JSN news, they're 4-9 straight up going back at home. The same situation played out last year. They laid in giant egg at home against the Giants. but I think the only time you can use Seattle and get rid of them. I also echo David's sentiments. I got creative and used a Washington on one. I think it's a horrible spot for the Raiders Monday night, travel, and all that rest for Washington. And I do like Mariota's rushing yards over as well. But Kingsbury, he's a good backup, and Kingsbury will have him ready to go. But other than that, no surprises. And I think you guys were excellent earlier, and you nailed it about how it would go. Seattle, the Bills, and Tampa Bay. And I thought Seattle was going to be the most selected team. And I also agree with Derek Stevens that next week, the most selected team ever will be the Buffalo Bills, laying more than 2 touchdowns against the Saints.
I heard Derek say that the most selected team in the history of Circa Survivor is what he's expecting. Do we happen to know what is currently the most selected team ever? I don't know off the top of my head. Does anybody know?
I don't know that either. I know, but that I think you're going to see. I mean, if that's going to be a big number next week.
Absolutely. Paulie, who do you think is the most likely favorite to lose outright next or tomorrow?
Oh, boy. I would say the Packers.
Oh.
And I love the Packers. I love their defense.
Ooh.
I just think Cleveland has the #1 rush defense. Maybe Love has some turnovers. Kraft may not go now. It just feels like a weird spot. But I would have to pick Green Bay here. But see, I think Tampa's vulnerable, but it's just a bad matchup for the Jets because you can't run on Tampa.
Yeah.
And then you're stuck with a backup quarterback too. Although Taylor might be an upgrade over Fields. How do you see it?
Man, oh man, I'm worried about the Bucs offensive line injuries. Three injuries to the offensive line, plus they lost Cansey on the defensive line, and this rookie receiver is gonna play, but he only practiced on Friday. If I'm on the Bucs and that kid goes down, I'm panicking because I think Sauce Gardner can somewhat neutralize Evans, and then where else do the Bucs go at that point? You got Ott in the tight end, so. That's a bit of a concern. When you talk about the Packers-Browns game, I'm interested to see these 2 offensive linemen for the Browns, Conklin and Bitonio, if they're even going to be active 90 minutes before the game. I'm curious. If I'm on the Packers and 1 or 2 of those guys are out, I heard Mary Cabot, the beat writer for the Browns, talk today about how they're essentially both game-time decisions. If I'm on the Packers and those guys are both healthy, I'm going to be sweating a little bit more when I wake up tomorrow morning for sure.
Yeah. I also think Grandissimo is fascinating.
Yeah.
Russell and Mike taking the 49ers last week, and that got home. That was great. And then you got another 49er pick. Who was that now? Who took the 49ers?
I didn't see who took him. We didn't take him. We couldn't take him again. Well, we could. We had 2 picks. I guess we could have taken him again, but no, we did not.
Tell Paulie who you took, Russell.
We got the Colts, baby.
Oh, man.
And we got the Chiefs, too. We got the Chiefs and the Colts, but we got 3 other people that followed us onto the Colts. No one followed us onto the Niners.
Yeah. Are you listen, you won it before, you know what you're doing, obviously, but don't you think it's risky to use road teams? Talk me through your process here.
Of course it's risky. It's always risky. The thing is that, you don't get an award for making it to week 6 or finishing 2nd or 3rd, right? So you got to find your spots. We actually thought we nailed pretty much the numbers on the main pool, but on Grandissimo, we did think we'd have more people on the Seahawks. And we were pretty close in the Bills, but we thought there'd be more on the Seahawks. And, we're just looking for a spot. And as I said earlier before you joined us, when I look at the Colts, Mike has thought they were going to be a better team than most people thought they were before the season started. But at the end of the day, they've only got 2 other games. Yes, they have more options than the Seahawks too, but not by a lot, right?
Okay.
And so it's a similar logic. If you told me this was all flipped and for whatever reason everyone was going to be on Indy and Seattle was on the road, we're probably on Seattle, right? It's just we're trying to find something around that sort of quality level, if you will. But also it's turned out even home field advantage is just not what it used to be in the NFL for whatever reason. Everyone used to say 3 points, right? 3 points, 3 points, 3 points. I think over the last few years, it's come down to about 1.5 point and a quarter. Like it's not 3 points anymore. I don't know why, but it's just not 3 points anymore. And it hasn't really manifested anywhere for that anymore.
Okay.
Paul, last week I asked you who you think the worst team in the NFL is, the team that you maybe want to fade in survivor pools. You said you thought it was the Saints.
Yeah.
They lose again, but looked a little feisty in the process. Do you still feel the same way about that Saints team? And I've got a 36-1 ticket on the Dolphins having the worst record in the NFL. Do I have any hope on that coming through?
Yeah, if they lose,
you gotta have hope. You're in good shape.
Damn right. If they lose at home to the Jets on Monday night, I think that's it. I think he'll Ross will get rid of everyone. They'll trade Tyreek, and he could bench Tua and forget about it. But this is
And Zach Wilson comes in at that point. I'm going to be loving that.
Well, that's not a bad ticket. I still think it's the Saints, but it's getting close. I think Tennessee Callahan's a bad coach. And they're not putting Ward in good situations. He's been sacked, I think 13 times. They've had 31 third downs. 23 of them have been 3rd and 7 or longer. The longest distance in the NFL. They're up there in penalties. They're up there in sacks. Denver tried to give them the game week 1. They couldn't take it. 4 turnovers only led to 6 points in that game. I wouldn't get. Hopefully the coach blow them out for Russ and Mike. But I just think it's close between Tennessee and the Saints. But I want to see what the Saints do now on the road. I mean, they showed up. They were in both games at home. Murray woke up with the flu in that week 1. Let's see what they do on the road here coming up, and if they can hang. Because I think they might get blown out in the next 2 weeks.
Let me ask you guys a question. So one thing. So this week we have Marcus Mariota, we have Carson Wentz, we have Jake Browning, we have all these backup quarterbacks. It's week 2. I mean, well, it's week 3. We've had 2 weeks, and we have all these backup quarterbacks. It seems to me that offensive linemen are getting hurt at an unsustainable rate, and it feels like replacement level offensive line is not at the point where other positions are. If a wide receiver gets hurt, there are guys to step in. Running backs get hurt, guys to step in. Defensive backs even. It feels like the drop-off is not as big, but the offensive line is really seems to be huge drop-offs. So I'm wondering if the defensive linemen are just so much better and stronger now that they're putting so much pressure on the offensive linemen, they're getting hurt, that we might lose a lot more quarterbacks over the course of this year, making future value of some of these teams that we're banking on not as relevant. It feels like we're having a disproportionate amount of injuries to offensive linemen and quarterbacks. What do you guys think about that?
It feels that way. That's a great breakdown. And I think this is scary that you're seeing so many guys get hurt already and what's going on at the quarterback position, if that will continue. I don't know if you could tie it into they don't practice that much anymore and they're not in pads as much. I would say maybe that you can make the case there with some shoddy tackling, if that would be the case. But some of it's a fluke, but also it could be that these guys are just beasts. And they could, they're 300 pounds and they can run us down in a 40-yard dash. It's an interesting point, though, about moving forward and looking at backup quarterbacks, too. Because once Cincinnati's in a great position. Browning can play. I can't believe he's not a starter. But if you look around the rest of the league, there's some lousy backup quarterbacks. But I certainly can go to war with Mariota on Sunday. But you get into some other guys, and you're in a world of hurt here, I think.
I think you're right. I think some of this has to do also with the way a lot of NFL teams have seemed to really concentrate their salary cap dollars in 2 or 3 guys at the top. Like it was, last year. I know we're not talking about Dallas and an injury there specifically, but you had between Dak and Lamb, I forget the percentage of the cap they had was insane. And then everybody knows, you need to get the good left tackle. Like it's not rocket science. So they'll go out and they'll pay a left tackle, right? But the difference is your defensive lineman doesn't have to line up against the left tackle. He can go the other side, right? So now you're getting to line yourself up against the guys that aren't necessarily the superstars, and maybe you are taking one of those guys out, right? Because there's just so much concentration of money in the top guys, and I think that indirectly causes some of these issues.
Paulie, let me ask you, a lot of people have sort of these rules that they live by when they're in survivor pools. I'll never take a division team. I'll never take a team on the road, et cetera, et cetera. I'll share one of mine with you guys. Weather games scare the hell out of me. I think it was 2022.
Yeah.
I had all my Circus Survivor entries on the 49ers against the Bears, week 1, sloppy game. And I just think weather can be a big equalizer for the underdog. Do you have any sort of rules like that you tend to live by when you're in survivor pools?
I made a deep run 2 years ago. I was down to the final 25, and I had to use a road team. I thought on Monday Night Football, and Tommy DeVito got me against the Packers. Now the Ravens were available, but I thought they were having a tough time beating the Rams, and the Rams were going to get them, and they shouldn't have won. There was a long 4th down conversion. They won in overtime. There was a clip. They wasn't called on a punt return. But
you barely remember.
Yeah, my co-host Mitch Moss went out last year. He made a deep run. He had the London game or the Germany game with the Giants. The one rule I have is I want to be able to sleep well at night knowing at least I have an above average team. I don't want to go to war and put everything in on a below average team or a bad coach, quarterback, whatever it may be. That's how I see it in one rule. I could be wrong, but that's like you could say I don't want to use a road team or division team or whatever. I just don't want to use a below average team or an average team. I want to take the best possible team, and if I go out that way, so be it. I think 4 years ago I went out. The Bears got me. I think they lost our only game they won the last 2 months. But Fields was great on Monday night in New England. But it was Belichick, and I felt, okay, you got one of the best coaches of all time. If that's how I go out, so be it. So that's how I want to feel at least good about it and not hate myself about how could I take a lousy team and go out, because I know that still eats at Mitch that he put all his eggs in the basket of Danny Dimes and a bad Giants team, and they blew it against Carolina.
While you're bringing up the bad memories, Russ and David, we'll start with Russ. Do you have a particularly bad Survivor beat that still sticks with you? When you're a champion, you can probably let it go a little easier when you got yourself a blue jacket. But I am curious if you have a really rough Survivor loss you can share with us.
Yeah, and it's too bad Mike's not here because it's he did the thing I try not to do. Last year we lost was I think Texans Titans, right? Where they got a touchdown call back late at the end and like a missed field goal and then we end up losing that game. So it sounds like just a regular loss and like it is what it is, except Mike decided to go ahead and run the board on the rest of the year to see how we would have done.
Oh, that you can't.
And I'm like,
that,
don't
man.
do that.
Don't,
like
no,
the rabbit hunt,
no.
the Survivor board, like just don't do that. And yeah, you know the answer. That's the reason that. And of course, Mike's the Titans fan too. That's like he's a lifelong Titans fan, so it kind of rubbed it in. But it's funny, like people talk about the difference between poker and golf, and they say, in golf you remember your great shots, and in poker you remember your bad beats. And actually, I remember from the year we won, I remember some of those games that we luck boxed into more than I actually do remember some of the beats we've had in the last couple of years, because they were late. Like there were games, the Raiders Steelers game on Christmas or something like that. We had no right to win at all. Stuff like that we squeaked out. And so those are great memories and fun. And I try to block the other ones out, which is why I don't want to rabbit hunt the deck after we bust.
David,
better to go on Survivor Sweat. Just buy another one and forget about your old pick.
I agree with that. Yep. Well said.
Way better.
David, I'm going to ask you the same question in a second. Tough Survivor beat. I want to share one with you guys. A couple years ago, I had 2 entries left out of the final 80, and I lost them both in the same weekend. Paulie, I don't know if you remember this or not. You and I talked on the phone previously because we were still alive, and you're like, hey, talk to my partner. We were actually talking about an equity share a couple years ago. So I lose 2 entries in the same weekend. Both of my starting quarterbacks get hurt in both games. Kenny Pickett goes down for the Steelers. And then on Monday Night Football, I had the Jaguars. I think it was Kirk. One of their receivers gets hurt in the first quarter. I'm like, fuck, now I'm down a wideout. Then Trevor Lawrence gets hurt. Now I'm down a quarterback. It goes to overtime, and the Jaguars, CJ Beathard, backup quarterback, throws a bomb from the 50-yard line. I'm going to win. Holding. Bring it back, and I end up losing in overtime. So I lost both of my Circa Survivor entries in the same weekend, 2 out of the final 80. That one hurt, for sure.
That's brutal.
We'll never forget it. How about you, Paul? Do you have any particularly rough ones that still stick with you?
I still think DeVito beating Love and the Packers. Yeah. I mean, he might never start another game again. And he just went on. He just played out of his mind for about 2 weeks, and then that was it. I also remember that game because I ran into a friend of David Baker's, a great poker player, and I ended up swapping equity with him, and that he was out on that game too. I think the Browning was the quarterback. It was a Monday night. Jacksonville went right down the field to start the game. They were 17-point favorites in play. Yeah, and then they lost the game, and then they went out and there were a couple entries on there too. So that's one I could, because I've only made one deep run. So I would just say that was the time where, of all things, Tommy Cutlets takes me out and beats me.
I think in the chat right now, this pertains to what you guys are saying. MK Invest says to win this, you have to have the opposite of a bad beat and get a win that should have been a loss. I like to remember those versus remembering the bad beats. Well said, MK Invest.
Yeah, and I would like to put money now, if I could, on the Circa Survivor champions this year. How many of them will have used Dallas in week 2?
Yes.
Right? Because not
Yes.
only, one, just intuitively, it always seems like that. Someone always has a win like that. But two, I really feel like if you got by with Dallas, a team that is a bit fringy, that you probably don't feel great about using later in the season, you're feeling pretty good, right?
Yeah, it's absolutely absurd. You have no business moving on. I think that's the fourth straight year that's happened where a team has been like 2-3 minutes left in overtime and they don't have the ball. And obviously ties, you're out too, and they win the game. That's happened like 4 years in a row. I mean, Dallas is, if you have the ball with 2 minutes left and you're the Giants, under no circumstances can you lose that game.
Right.
And then Wilson just throws it up for grabs. So that was a gift.
And it's really frustrating to be on that end of it. Like in this case, I was on Dallas, so I'm like, thank God, it feels great. But man, you guys remember that freaking Justin Tucker 66-yard field goal or whatever it was, or 64-yard field goal against the Lions a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Last year at the end, you had like a Panthers overtime game in week 15 or 16 that saved a lot of people. Panthers choked in overtime. It's really frustrating when you feel like you made the right move and a bunch of people should have gotten knocked out and don't. How about last year on Thanksgiving, the Chiefs Raiders on Thanksgiving? That might be the best example of all time of that. It's really irritating when you're on the other end of that.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's brutal.
And you keep in mind, the crazy thing about Survivor is that other than the one game you're on, you're almost always rooting for the Saints, the Browns, the Titans, the Panthers. Like, you're massive fans of 3 of those 4 teams every week. Like, every week you are rooting for, maybe all 4, but 3 of 4 for sure. Every
Just
week
buy a
you're
Bryce
rooting
Young
for 3.
jersey. Just buy a Bryce Young jersey, you know?
While they're still available.
Yeah, while you can. While you can. Paulie, before we close the show here, I asked the guys if they have any hot takes for the weekend, any surprises that you think might happen, or what percentage of people do you think are going to get knocked out this week, wherever you want to take it to wrap up the show?
I think it's going to be chalk again. You know, Rattlers never won a game. I trust the Seattle defense here at home. I think Tampa will do enough offensively, and the Jets won't be able to move the ball. Atlanta should be able to run all over Carolina with the dynamic rushing attack they have, and I'm buying the defense. So I just think it's going to be – I have 26 teams selected again. Unbelievable. But I just think it's going to be a lot of chalk again, and I think it's going to happen next week too. Next week's going to be wild about how many teams you can use. The Lions, you can use the Bills, you can use Houston. There was another team that's a good size favorite, so it'll be interesting next week. But I'm waiting for thank you, very good. Patriots at home against Carolina. I'm waiting for carnage, but I think it might take a couple weeks.
Yeah, the Bills. I think it's something like this: 3 of the next 7 weeks, they're the biggest favorite on the board, and then there's another week where they're the second biggest favorite on the board. So yes, a shitload of people are going to be on the Bills next week, but there's some really good spots after next week to use them as we move forward. So it's going to be really interesting to see how people use them up for sure.
Yeah,
absolutely. All right, guys, I think we've done all we can today. Thank you so much for coming on again, Paulie. We really appreciate you. Enjoy the games tomorrow. Seattle's in the late spot tomorrow, so a lot of people are going to be rooting for their game to get through, and then praying for the Saints to pull the upset in the late spot. So, or if you're on Seattle, good luck with that.